Inventory is generally considered as items that are required for an activity, for a function, for an operation. Inventory is all over the place. You cannot live without inventory. You go to your own homes, you have inventory. You go to the kitchen, you have inventory. So why is inventory so important? Inventory is important because we incur costs when purchasing items. We incur costs when purchase inventory. Now the whole purpose of purchasing inventory or putting items into stock, items into a warehouse, items into storage is because we envisage or we expect to use them. And while using them, it is supposed to give us some sort of profit. We are expected inventory to be used in our operations, in our processes, so that finally these are converted to cash when the final product or service is sold to the customer. But the issue is this: how much inventory should we keep in our warehouses? We cannot have a situation where we run short of inventory, because when we need a product, that has to be in inventory. But at the same time, we cannot afford to have excess inventory. We cannot afford to have inventory in our warehouses, in our storage plants, which does not actually move, which is not used. Why? We tie our cash in inventory. We purchase inventory. So what do you mean by purchasing inventory? You replace the cash with tangible items. We replace whatever cash we have with tangible items. Now, if the tangible items cannot be used to bring us money that is over and above the cash that we spent, having inventory doesn't make sense. Now, we are talking about business environment. It's actually same in our individual lives as well. We purchase things for our own consumption. We purchase things for our own consumption, be it food, be it material, be it whatever. So where does the money come in? When we use that inventory. Now it's not money; it's basically satisfaction, basically advantages or things that can really help us in our own lives to make our lives a better place. And if you really convert that to cash, you will realize that some of these benefits that we receive by using whatever things that we purchase is actually cannot be it's basically priceless. Now, food that we eat is priceless. It's beyond quantified benefits Because you don't eat food, fall sick, and then you're going to have a problem with your life. So, be it an individual, be it an organization, inventory is important only if we use the inventory to get the benefit that we have planned. So that is why a lot of organizations find it difficult to manage inventory. The accountants and the finance guys will shout if there is over inventory, if the inventory does not move, because these are funds that have been converted to tangible items, and the funds are just sitting somewhere without reaping the benefit for the organization in terms of profit. So in a perfect world, organizations should aim to operate with zero inventory, because if you have zero inventory, which means whatever you have purchased has been utilized. That is what it means. It does not mean that you don't purchase anything. If at any point of time, if your inventory is zero, which means whatever you have purchased as inventory has been used, has been converted to cash. But that's in a perfect world. In a perfect world where you know exactly what is being demanded by the customer, in what quantity, right? You can talk about zero inventory. But a lot of organizations are trying to move towards maintaining zero inventory. It's inventory that you store that needs to be used for the very next operation. So the time gap between storing inventory and using the inventory has actually minimized a lot now. Why? Because if the time gap minimizes, then what it means is the cash that has been used to purchase inventory has been converted back to cash in a very short time. That is what it means. So, let's move to the next slide now. So, this is what we are going to learn today. Inventory systems. So, managing inventory, you really require inventory systems. Inventory control systems are very important. Then you're talking about costs in inventory. Then we'll talk a little bit on independent versus dependent demand. What does that mean? Then there are certain inventory models that needs to be, assessed or studied or understood. So, what is an inventory system? So, inventory system is a set of controls or policies that monitor the levels of inventory and determines what levels should be maintained. So you actually require inventory to run an organization, run a business. Without inventory, you cannot run it. But what is the duration that organizations what is the duration that the organizations support during which inventory does not move? Because whatever you purchase has to be stored, and then how long does it get stored without being used? Now, some inventory by nature you cannot store it for a long time, like food items you cannot. Food items you cannot store for a long time. So there is an inherent shelf life for inventory. So within that, you need to somehow or other utilize that. If not, you'll have to scrap that, destroy that. So these items are really critical when it comes to managing, their storage process. Because if you are going to, purchase over and above what is required, you will end up, incurring a lot of huge costs, because you'll have to actually destroy half of these. So inventory is very important for organizations. Inventory is any item or resource used in an organization, and they can include what? Raw materials, finished products, component parts, supplies, work in progress. All these things are, considered inventory. Okay. So this slide gives you a little bit more examples or depth into what inventory is. So what is the process? In the first place, custom invoicing process. So in a custom invoicing process, examples of inventory held, of course, money. Information is also inventory. Probably intangible. Customer is an inventory. So if you really go through each of these things, you will realize that you cannot run a business, you cannot live without inventory. But the problem is, inventory comes at a cost. So whatever you cash that you have is being used to purchase inventory. But the real reason for purchasing inventory is either to use it, consume it, so it will actually give you some intangible benefit, or else resell it or use it in another manufacturing process and resell it so that it gives you some sort of profit. Okay. So the problem with inventory is this: you got inflow, you got outflow, right? Ideal situation is you don't have inventory, inflow just moves across the process to the outflow. So you have got zero inventory, you purchase 100 units, you consume 100 units, and it transforms itself into probably 50 finished goods units, and it moves out. But there are so many reasons why you need to actually keep inventory, because erratic demand, you will not know exactly how the movement will take place, delays in the internal processes, delays in activities, additional activities that actually moves into the process or being used in the process to validate certain aspects of the process. So therefore, inventory is a necessary evil, but it's actually required. So that is why you need to manage that. So what is the purpose of inventory? So this is the purpose of inventory: to maintain independence of operations. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by to maintain independence of operations? If you have two operations, and if one operation is dependent on the other, then your risks are more. So you have got two activities in your manufacturing process. So let's say, for example, in automobile manufacturing process, in an assembly line, you start assembling a vehicle. Now, whenever it moves, the semi-finished product moves from one particular location to the other, it has to complete what it needs to be completed in that particular process or in that particular section. Let's say, for example, in the assembly line manufacturing process of a vehicle, you've got an activity that you need to fix the gearbox to the vehicle. So when the semi-finished vehicle, the shell of the vehicle moves to the location where the fixing of the gearbox to the vehicle take place, the gearbox will be made available. If the gearbox is not available, then what is going to happen is it's going to delay the process, and the subsequent process may get delayed, and there may be certain things like starving, and then from the rear end there may be blockages because this particular process is not moving, it's stagnated because there is no gearbox, and you can't actually move to the next activity because without affixing the gearbox to the shell. So to maintain independence of operations, what they do is they have an inventory of gearboxes. They don't actually wait until the shell comes to this particular location to call for the gearbox. So the gearbox will have its own assembly line which will manufacture it, and then probably you may have about 3 or 4 gearboxes waiting in inventory for the shell of the car to arrive at that particular point, and the guy is responsible, or probably the robot, sort of fixes the gearbox to the shell of the car. So then the second one is to meet variation in product demand. Right, very good. See, demand is not consistent. Demand is never consistent. You go to McDonald's. Where do you have inventory? You have inventory in its semi-finished form. You get cheese, you get meat products, you get vegetables, you get potato chips, all in its semi-finished form. So when the customer moves in and then places an order, say he wants a burger, the assembly of the burger takes place immediately, and the product is manufactured. Now, you are not sure whether the customer is going to order one product, one burger, or 4 burgers, or 5 burgers, or there will be a string of customers in line to purchase burgers. So because of the fact that the variation in product demand is a reality, you need to have more semi-finished goods to assemble the burger and then sell the burger to the customer. So to allow flexibility in production scheduling. So flexibility, in the manufacturing process, right? You need to schedule production. Let's say in a vehicle assembly plant, you may find an activity, you may find a location where hi-fi equipment like the radios and the DVD players are, fixed to the vehicle. Now, probably there may be different models of the video players or DVD players being fixed to the vehicle. Now, that will be based on your customer demand. Probably the customer wants a basic player. Okay, then you put the basic player in. If they want a specific, branded player, then you select the branded player and then fix it. Now, for that you need a variable units of multiple brands of DVD players in inventory, because only at that point they will know which brand of product to fix it. So flexibility is very important. Flexibility in the production scheduling purpose is extremely important. Fourth one is to provide a safeguard for variation in raw material delivery time. Now, suppliers are not that sort of, reliable, because there are so many things, millions of things that can go wrong. Supplier will say, okay, I can actually deliver it in 10 days. But in most cases, it takes about 10 days, about 11 days, 12 days, 13 days. It could be, due to external influences, external problems, due to transport issues. due to shipping issues, due to so many other things, due to issues in supplies, manufacturing plant. Now, just because the supplier is unreliable, you can't use that an excuse to stop your production line, because you have targets to make, you have objectives to achieve. So therefore, what you do is you assess the requirement of raw materials for a particular time frame, and then you order 10%, 15% more, just to be safe in case there is variation in delivery timings. Then the fifth one is more realistic, is to take advantage of economic purchase order size. Let's say you purchase, raw materials. Let's give an example. I'll take the example of McDonald's. Okay, you need bread, right? You need bread. Now the bread rolls, you place an order with a supplier. You place an order for bread rolls with a supplier. Now you compute, you assess what the bread rolls requirements would be for a particular day, and then place an order with a supplier the previous day. So you assess that you need, let's say, 550 bread rolls. Now you would like to order exactly 550 bread rolls, because you assess the demand is going to be 550. But your supplier says, come on, my minimum order quantity is not 550, my minimum order quantity is 750. Because if you place an order for 750, then I can give you the most optimum price. If not, the price will be much more higher. So that's called economic purchase order size. So in this case, the economic purchase order size is 750. So you place an order for 750. But you only need 550, so there's an excess there that will go into inventory. But you can still use it the following day. So therefore, you take advantage of economic purchase order size and place an order which is in excess of what is required, and then put the excess into inventory. So you build the inventory because you need to take advantage of the pricing factors. Okay. So these are the advantages of inventory. As I said, inventory is a necessary evil. So advantages of inventory is an insurance against uncertainty. Suddenly there may be peaks in demand. So you are better off, having inventory to service that demand. Inventory can counteract a lack of flexibility, right? We discussed that before. Inventory allows operations to take advantage of short-term opportunities. Let's say suddenly your marketing division comes and says, look, tomorrow or day after, there's going to be an exhibition somewhere. I just want to promote my products. I want some, X amount of products to be made available for the exhibition. Now, probably you're not planned for that. But if you have excess inventory, you can use that. You can use that for the exhibition, which in turn can actually bring you more sales. Then inventory can be used to anticipate future demand, right? So, example is, if you are in Sri Lanka, April is a holiday month. So look at the consumer goods industry in Sri Lanka. Because April is a holiday month, obviously March, in most organizations, March is going to be high peak. And that is the month a lot of sales is going to be, you know, anticipated. So you do not uh, have goods based on probably the last 3 months average demand, because because April most of the organizations are closed, most of the shops are closed because of the New Year holidays. You tend to build stocks, more stocks in probably February and March, because you know that there's going to be a surge in demand in the latter part of March and early part of April, right? So this is anticipating future demand. You build inventory, and of course inventory can reduce overall cost, as you say. In a manufacturing plant, if you have a manufacturing plant, manufacturing one unit is more expensive than manufacturing 100 units. If the manufacturing process is capable of manufacturing 100 units at a given time, a lot of organizations will decide to manufacture 100 units, not one unit, because your overheads will be the same whether you manufacture one unit or you manufacture 100 units. So you manufacture 100 units and put it into inventory because it makes economic sense. Inventory also can increase in value. Now, this is actually true if you have regulatory bodies in your own countries where they increase their prices almost overnight. Classic example is, you increase the fuel prices, and then what happens is, petrol sheds hoards, and then they tell the customers, look, we don't have petrol, because they know your inventory can increase in value if you hold on to it. And that really happens in a lot of countries, right? But that's not ethical, but it can. Let's for example, there's a gazette notification that comes in which says, look, you are going to increase the duty of imported finished goods from probably April onwards or probably May onwards. So what organizations tend to do is, they bring in a huge container or more containers of finished goods before the date that duty is set to increase, because they know the value of inventory will increase after May, and we can actually gain more profits. So inventory fills the processing pipeline, right? Whether you like it or not, you need to have inventory in an assembly line in a manufacturing process. Wherever you go, you need to have inventory, because without inventory, you cannot run an operation. But the question is, how do you manage the quantity of inventory, the most optimum quantity of inventory? How do you manage without making inventory redundant or slow moving and obsolete? Right. So remember, there are two things that you need to remember when you talk about inventory. Inventory can be redundant. Inventory can be slow moving. Both are equally not acceptable for organizations. So inventory which are obsolete, that means generally inventory or stocks or items that have not moved for one particular year is generally termed obsolete items. They are not moved. So what happens is the company has to take a hit, and they have to write these things off in their financial books, which is, in the financial books, those things goes as a expense completely, because you write it off. Slow moving is very simple. Slow moving, in a lot of organizations, they classify slow moving items as the amount of inventory that is over and above the last 12 months sales. let's say the last 12 months sales is 20,000, and you have today, you have inventory, or at the end of the year, or 31st of December, you have inventory, 40,000 inventory. The excess or the difference between that is called slow moving. Okay, right. So operational managements have different, you know, diverse views on inventory. Inventory is costly because you tie up cash, the working capital. Whatever funds you have, you tie up in inventory, and the inventory does not move, and it has to move, it has to turn over for the cash to bring you, profit or revenue. But they are also risky because shelf life can become obsolete, and these are very risky for inventory is very risky for food items, right? That is why if you go to some of the supermarket, you will say, sales at counter, that they say, buy two and get one free. If you go into those items and look at their expiry date, you will see the expiry date is probably 1 week or 2 weeks, from the date that they have promoted this sort of venture, right? So they can become obsolete, and if they become obsolete, they have to be written off. And from a warehousing perspective, they take up valuable space, because the cost of a warehouse is actually space. Space costs a lot of money. In today's world, space costs a lot of money. So if inventory does not move, inventory occupies warehouse space, which is money. Okay. So these are some of the pictures of warehousing, how they have conserved space in warehouses, right? Because space costs money. However, inventory provides security, and especially in a complex where demand is very uncertain, it provides some sort of security. It provides a lot of security actually, because if you look at the marketing division would always wants things to be in stock. They will scream, right? They will complain if what they want to sell is not in stock. But on the other hand, how do you sort of bridge this gap? Whenever they want something, they should be in stock. But they are not sure whether they are going to sell it or not. So therefore, what is the number of items that you need to have in stock? So managing that is actually very important. So inventory also can be used to meet unexpected demand. So if you have more inventory, there's an unexpected demand, you can use it. So you will not have a lost sale if you have inventory. And of course, it provides a certain amount of comfort. So this is why in an organization, the control function is always at loggerheads with the operation function. In an operation function, they need more stock, but they are not sure that they are going to sell it or not. But when the sale comes in, they need the product to be in stock, in inventory. But the controlling arm would always question, why do you have such amount of things in stock, and why when it's not moving? So it's a vicious cycle, right? So you need to have a good mechanism to manage this kind of sort of uncertainty in what needs to be in stock and what needs to be what does not need to be in stock. So therefore, classifying items are very important. You need to be able to classify items that needs to be in stock into fast moving items, not so fast moving items, slow moving items, and items that you don't know whether you're going to sell or not. So you need to have a scientific way of calculating this based on historical movement of goods, how they have actually moved, the items that they have moved, the quantities that they have moved, the seasonality of these items, whether they moved, whether they sold right across the year at a constant pace, or did they sell during specific periods, right? Let's say, for example, ice cream. Now, generally, ice cream sales are low during, cold months, or especially, areas like Nuareli, where, it's facing cold. But I think ice cream sales are, increases significantly during the hot months, right? So you need to assess the seasonality of certain products. Umbrellas, for the example, you should know exactly when to put umbrellas in stock, right? Generally, what happens is during rainy seasons, people use more umbrellas than hot seasons. So you need to plan out what needs to be in inventory based on the environmental conditions. If the demand for that particular item is dictated by environmental conditions. Okay, so inventory, if you are not sure whether you are going to sell or not, if sales and marketing cannot commit to selling a product, they are not sure whether there is going to be a sale or not, whether there is going to be demand or not, these products has to be classified as make to order, which means items that is highly unpredictable are better off being classified as make to order and manufactured or sourced or purchased when there is an actual demand and order. So there are certain items that you don't hold stock. You only start manufacturing when there is an actual customer order. Obviously, the lead times are going to be very high. But then, because of the fact that these are unique products, these products, they are unpredictable demand, their selling price is also going to be obviously high, right? So, organizations tend to gain by following a make-to-order policy for items that have unpredictable demand. But for items that are highly predictable, then you can keep it in stock. You can actually use economies of scales and then put it into inventory. You know that the items will actually move very fast. So between these two extremes, there will be different classifications given to items that are not so predictable but are predictable, right? At different varying degrees. Okay. So, what is the dilemma of inventory management? In spite of cost and other disadvantages of holding stock, they smooth supply and demand. If you have inventory of all items, then you can be sure that whenever there is an order for a particular item, you will be able to sell it. But on the other hand, right, if there is no sale, then you're lugged with inventory that ties your cash, right? So this is the dilemma in inventory management. So let's look look at this slide now. Inventory management. You've got the supply of products and services on one side, and then your demand for products and services on the other side. And right at the bottom, you've got the operations resources. At this end, you've got the operations customers. So, why should you have inventory? In most cases, you need to have inventory because there is a timing difference between supply and demand, right? Because you demand something and you supply something, there's always a timing difference. You can't have an instantaneous supply for a demand. You need to sort of manage that time. So inventory compensates for the difference in timing between the supply and demand of material resources. Otherwise, what is going to happen is the demand will come in, and then you have to wait until you capture the demand, order the raw materials, manufacture the product, and then give. That's okay if the item that you are going to produce is unpredictable. But it's not okay if the demand is for, predictable items that are actually moving. You know it's going to move, but you don't know at what degree it's going to move. So you need to be able to, decide the amount of items that needs to be held in stock. Okay? Right. So, inventory can be broken down into these 4 categories. So there's actually a broad base categories of inventory. One is raw material. Work in progress is also, inventory. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to shut down your operation for the day, you will have semi-finished goods. Any organization will have it, right? And of course, you will have finished goods, right? That are products that are ready for delivery. Now, irrespective of these 3, you have got another category. Supplies not directly consumed or converted by the process, like people, machines, right? Other resources that actually are being used by organizations to complement the process, right? So things like that, which support the process but not directly consumed by the process. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, broad-based categories of inventory, right? So these is actually some examples of inventory in the field of operations. So you can see in the hotel, these are the examples of inventory. Hospital, retail shop, warehouse, auto spares, TV manufacturers, metals processors. No? So without inventory, I don't think any organization can actually sustain itself. So simple as that. Okay? Right. So there are some examples of inventory management. There are certain different ways of holding stock. Now, that's an example of Pret a Manger, Greggs and Subway. I don't know whether in Qatar you have these fast food operations companies. Pret a Manger is actually a sandwich shop. It's a fast food outlet. It is in the UK. Pret a Manger focuses on fresh food and health food. Nowadays, a lot of people are focusing on eating right. So Pret a Manger is geared to managing fresh food. So all the sandwiches that is being manufactured and sold by Pret a Manger are fresh. So they make the food fresh in the first thing in the morning. And then at the end of the day, they dispose all what is basically remaining. Right? It's costly, but then their motto is, we deliver fresh food, Preta Maj. So this is a Preta Maj, shop where people walk in. You know, there is a specific range of foods you can't actually order. You know, it's from the menu. It's all set. Right? They're sandwiches. This is all sandwiches. You know, the sandwiches are made, prepared in the morning using fresh vegetables, right? Fresh meat products. Everything there is actually fresh. Now, if you really look at managing, this kind of, or managing the inventory at Preta Manager is very complex because at the end of the day you're going to actually dispose all what you have not consumed because your motto is fresh food. The following day you have to manufacture fresh sandwiches again. So it makes sandwiches at the store and places them into stock. So what they do is they manufacture it in their outlets. So if you have outlets in 10 countries, or sorry, in 10 cities, each outlet they will start manufacturing the sandwiches. So there is no possibility of sharing raw materials and sandwiches between shops. It's a self-contained operation, right? It only offers pre-packed sandwiches. You can only have what is on offer, right? You can't order anything new. And the operation is to make to stock locally. So they come in the morning, they assess based on the last few days or last few weeks consumption, what needs to be in stock, and then start manufacturing to stock. Okay. So this is the example of what Preta Maj sandwich pack looks like. It's all packed. Then we have got Greg's. It's also a sandwich store, fast food outlet. So how does Greg manage? Now remember, Preta Maj manages its sandwiches locally, right? So it's a self-contained operation, right? Greg makes sandwiches at a central location, but that's the difference. Now what Greg does is they may have, let's say for example, in a particular area, particular demarcated geographical area, they would have one factory, and centrally they manufacture and then distribute the centrally manufactured items to its outlets, right? So advantage is minimizes manufacturing costs because you're talking about economies of scale. This is actually bulk manufacturing, but again it's only set menu. You can only have what is on offer. You cannot actually order something which is not on the shelves. So the operation is to make to stock centrally. It's all make to stock. Both Preta Maj and the Greg's make to stock. There's no concept of make to order here. Now, let's look at Subway. It makes sandwiches at the counter from a standard range, but the customer can customize to their preference and have what they want. It's like something like McDonald's. It's not made to stock. The finished good item is not made to stock. It is basically made to stock from a standard range, but there's also provision for the customers to use whatever raw materials that are there and to design their own sandwich the way that they want. Let's say additional cheese, additional this, additional mustard sauce, that kind of thing. So the customer can customize the preference and have what they want. Now, in this case, it's not so much as made to stock, it's made to order, right? So there is no finished product here. There is no finished product on the shelves, right? In the showcases, where people can actually go and pick. Here, the customer comes in, he looks at the menu, he looks at what is on offer. There's the standard range, but then they can also order over and above the standard range. But the manufacturing takes place after the order is being placed. So it's made to order. Okay. Right. So these three operations are laid side by side, and you can see the similarities and the differences between the three operations. So we have got dangers of over investment. You decide, do you want to actually be optimistic, and then you can actually put everything into stock. That's called that sort of opens a heap lot of dangers, because dangers of over investment is all about tying your cash in immovable assets. That's do not move, but you're invested in them. So if you're not sure whether you're going to purchase these or not, or sorry, I apologize. If you're not sure, if you're not going to sell it, then you need to take a step back to assess whether whether there is a possibility of these items being sold, fast. Otherwise, your cash will get tied up in stocks and inventory, and they will be lying in your warehouse. So, excessive carrying costs, risk of liquidity difficult to convert into cash. What happens after you realize there are items in your inventory that has not moved for the last 11 months. Now, the 12th month, you're going to have to write these things off, because it will be considered as dormant items that have not moved. So what you do is you give discounts. You start some or other pushing it through to the customers by giving discounts, and some of these discounts would actually bring the selling price way below the cost of the product, and finally you will incur a loss for these products. But it's better than writing this off, because writing a particular thing off, product off, would entail writing the entire cost out. But at least you get something if you give them a discount. And of course, physical deterioration of inventories while in storage, improper storage facilities, some may have shelf lives and so forth, right? So these are the dangers of overinvestment. So likewise, you've got the dangers of underinvestment. You're not sure whether these are going to sell, so you're not going to put it into stock. You're not going to take that risk. Now, if you don't do that, if you need to make calculated risks. But there is a scientific way of actually managing that. We will come to that as we actually go along. How do you decide what needs to be in inventory? How do you decide, what needs to be made to order, right? So these techniques have to be understood by organizations and put into practice. Okay. So there are three ways of actually doing this. There are three main ways of doing this. Okay. One is continuous inventory. The other one is periodic inventory. The other one is ABC system. So how do you know what to stock? How do you know what quantity to stock? How do you assess that? So let's look at these three. One is called the continuous inventory systems. Now, continuous inventory system, right, is for items that have a high predictability of demand, very high predictability of demand. It's like food items like water, rice, flour, dal, you name it, bread. High predictability of demand. You know that these are going to sell. So what you do is you decide what the order quantity is going to be. So you have a fixed order quantity. You just keep on replenishing the items whenever it reaches a particular level, right? So, um, continuous inventory systems are, for very highly predictable items. Now, you also use continuous inventory management systems for items that you cannot afford to go out of stock, because the competition is so heavy. If you don't have that in stock, right, your competitors will override you. So, it's highly moving items. You know, vegetables, things like bread, probably rice, staple diets of people, water, you name it. Okay. So reorder occurs at a trigger point, it says, and often uses fixed order quantity, right? So it keeps on being replenished. All what it is, the moment the items moves into a completely a level, keep on placing an order for that. So keep on replenishing or stop at regular intervals. Okay. So these, you normally use these kind of equipment, barcode readers and sort of thing, because it's very easy. The moment an item actually moves, at a particular level, it automatically is supposed to sort of, create a replenishment order. Right? So it's all highly automated process that can be used for continuous inventory management systems. Then the periodic inventory system. Periodic inventory systems, inventory levels are checked after a specific time period. Let's say every week on Saturday, on a particular day, you go and check the level. In a continuous, you don't have to check the level. It is automatically, it's programmed to, create a replenishment order whenever the levels, inventory levels moves down to a particular level. So most of the automated stock replenishment systems are geared for continuous inventory, right, management. Therefore, periodic. So every week, let's say Friday, you go and check all the items, and some may have actually moved down even to zero. It doesn't matter, because of the fact that these items, you can afford, for these items to go below, a particular level. They are not that demand predictable as a continuous, as the items that warrants a continuous replenishment system. But in most cases, most items falls into this particular category, and most items in organizations falls into the periodic inventory system category, where people tend to go and then look at the inventory levels of these particular items on a particular day, and then replenish the replenishment order. Okay. So these items would generally have in a warehouse two areas. One, where the issuing will take place. The other, where you get the bulk stock. So from the bulk stock, you move to the issuing area, and your reorder levels are actually maintained at the bulk stock level. So when the bulk stock actually moves to a particular reorder level, then you go and check, and then you place a replenishment order. So the replenishment order will replenish the bulk stock, because so in this case you will not run out of stock unless, of course, there's a significant delay in replenishing. Right? Okay. Right. So generally you're supposed to classify your inventory. So there are so many classifications that actually comes in. You get A, B, C, HML, XYZ, VD, FSN, SDF, GOL, FSOS, right? So much of classifications that are there. So, but for this particular exercise only, we'll actually look at ABC classification. We'll move into this. We'll touch on this, because you need to actually do a little bit of exercises. some sums and then some problems that has to be sort of, these are all mathematics. So we will touch on this when I visit Qatar, and we'll have to actually do some sums on, certain most optimum order, right? What is the computation method that actually you can actually use, right? What is the quantity that is most economically viable, right? These things have to be calculated, right? So let's look at ABC. Now, ABC is all about, you classify your stocks based on, the 20% of items that contributes towards 80% of the value of stock, number one. Or else, the 20% of the items in inventory that contributes towards 80% of your sales value, right? And based on that, the 20% is classified as A. And then, classify another percent as B, the rest will be C. So more items will be in the C category than B and A. And A will have only the 20%, which are, highly predictable. And each of these items will have its own reorder levels, reorder quantities, and safety stocks setting. And you then go back to your periodic level, sort of replenishment level operation or management process, where on a particular day you go and check to see whether these items have reached their reorder levels. And those items that have reached the reorder levels or gone below the reorder levels, you create a replenishment order. Okay. Right. So this is how you sort of diagrammatically decide what are the A class items, or B class items, or C class items. So in this case, you can have the total value of items, say, let's say the value of items, or you can look at the sales value of items, the cost of items. You can actually use any of those things. But just to sort of ascertain what the 20% of items that will contribute to the 80% of the either value, right, or the sales value, or the cost, or or whatever other KPI indicator that you think is actually suitable. Okay. Right. So this is ABC calculation again. It sort of it gives you an expanded view of how to. And then you can actually either use a percent of use or percentage of value or whatever it is. It depends on how you intend setting up your key performance indicators. Okay. Right. So sometimes inventory would have to be managed based on the dependent and independent relationship of items. Let's say certain items you cannot actually look at their demand in isolation. You have to look at it from a perspective of the dependencies that a particular item would have on another particular item. Let's say look at things like McDonald's or something like that, right? You can't generally look at cheese alone. You have to look at cheese from a hamburger perspective. So your demand for cheese would be dependent on the demand for hamburgers. Demand for meat would be dependent on the demand for the hamburgers. So when you decide on what to order and in which quantity to order, you have to be very careful to decide or to identify whether the demand for a particular item would be dependent on a demand for a certain other item. Now in this case, in the case of a hamburger, independent demand is actually the hamburger. The dependent demand, right, is basically the cheese. So you need to be even very careful about ascertaining what is the dependent demand, what is the independent demand is all about, right? Like for example, if you go to McDonald's, KFC, and all these things, they say, "I will give you a free Coke." You go to Pizza Hut, you go, we give you a free bottle of Coke. Now, somebody in that organization will have to ascertain how much of bottles of Coke there needs to be replenished. Now, bottles of Coke will dependent on the demand that is ascertained for the finished product, right? So, Coke is dependent on the finished product. So, when you decide on managing inventory, you have to be very, very careful about, identifying the dependencies of one product with the other. Okay. Right. So this is, when you look at the models, you have to be very careful about the nature of the item as well. So what we say is, assume an analyst applies an inventory model that does not allow for spoilage to a grocery chain's ordering policy for lettuce, and formulates the strategy of ordering lettuce in large amounts every 14 days. Now, lettuce is something like, greenery that will actually go in, as a dependent item, right, to a hamburger or something like that. Now, if you are going to order large amounts, you are not considered the shelf life of these lettuces. So you can't, when you decide on a particular model, you need to consider the shelf lives of these as well. Some of these items may only have 1 or 2 days shelf life. Some of these may have years of shelf life. So you need to actually take that into consideration, build that into your formula when you compute your order quantities. Okay. So reorder levels and reorder points. We'll actually go through this one in a little bit detailed when I come to Kata, because there's a lot of sums that needs to be actually done on this one. How do you calculate your reorder level? How do you calculate your reorder point? What is your safety stock? What is your economic order quantity? What is your optimum quantity? Right? So these kind of things needs to be understood, and some sums have to be done. Now, EOQ is the economic order quantity. Now, what is economic order quantity? Economic order quantity is a quantity of an order that will minimize your entire ordering inventory costs, right? So ordering and holding costs have to be minimized, right, to compute the economic order quantity. So in other words, an economic order quantity is a quantity at which your total inventory cost is at the minimum level. So there are a lot of sums that you have to actually do this. We can't do the sums here, right? But we will actually do it when I come to Kata. So this is actually the formula for EOQ. You've got the total annual cost, which is actually the annual purchase cost, annual ordering cost, and annual holding cost. So your economic order quantity is where your ordering cost is equals to your holding cost. The quantity at which your ordering cost is equal to your holding cost is considered as the most economic order quantity, right? So we put it on a graph. You'll see this. This is the top line is your total cost. This is your holding costs, and this is your ordering costs. The reason why your ordering costs is it takes this kind of figure is because to order one unit, the cost is more. To order multiple units, right, bulk units, the unit cost will be actually less. So it's much cheaper to order container load full of items rather than air freight one item or two items. That is what it means. So the point at which your holding cost equals to your ordering cost, that is where your economic order quantity is. But there are actually sums that needs to be done, and this will actually go through that one later. Okay. Right. So these are some of the what do you call videos that you can actually see for yourself. What is modern inventory management? The future ready frequency ID, warehouse in store or inventory store. Future supermarket with FID functionality. You can just actually run this and watch these videos, which actually gives you an indication as to where the future is going to be, where inventory management is considered. Right. Right. So these could be a typical examination question. We'll work on this one as we actually go along. And by the way, going to have a mock exam before the real exam. Before the real exam, we will hold a mock exam, which will actually give you examination questions similar to what you may receive or you may get at the examination. Then what we can do is we can correct these mock examinations. I would advise everyone to attempt the mock examination, because if you can get through the mock examination, then you will definitely get through your final examination. So this is actually a typical examination question. Business process managers have an ambivalent view of inventory. Ambivalent means diverse views. On the one hand, it ties up the organization's valuable resources, but on the other hand, it can provide level of comfort in an uncertain world. So with reference to your own organization or the one that you know, you can use any organization that you like, discuss how inventory is managed and the advantages and the disadvantages that might be associated with holding stocks. So, there's a way of actually handling this. First, you need to look at the theories in inventory management and apply the theories to the organization of your choice, and then, explain or just suggest where they have fallen short and where, things can improve. Okay. Right. So from here on, this is more on the numbers, the numerics and all. Let's work this when we meet in Qatar somewhere in February. Just to look at inventory planning and controls. So remember this. Inventory is also a planning task, right? The planning comes first before the control. You can't actually control what has not been planned. So you need to maintain the right balance between high and low inventory to minimize costs. It's not a question of minimizing inventory. It's optimizing inventory. You need inventory anyway, but you must have the right type and the right quantity of inventory to manage your business. So to maintain is you plan what inventory to stock, then you forecast based on your demand, your independent and dependent demand. Then of course you keep on controlling inventory levels. So control factor comes up with the mechanism of managing your replenishment. Okay. Then you look at feedback and then keep on sort of resolving. Say for example, a highly predictable item suddenly you find a highly predictable item that you have actually where you have used ABC analysis or periodic sort of an inventory control mechanism to manage replenishment. You're seeing that that item is overstocked. So then it's high time to actually go and then find out exactly whether your classification of the inventory is right, whether it's high fast moving or do you really need to move it to the B category or C category or whatever it is, right? So this area is extremely important for organizations. Right. Then inventory accuracy and cycle counting. See, there was a time, good old days, I don't know whether it's been done even now in certain organizations, they close shop. They close the organization for 2 whole days to do annual inventory check. Now, in today's business world, this is not on. You can't actually afford to close shop. So therefore, your inventory accuracy has to be built into your inventory management. So this is where the cycle counting concept comes in. Cycle counting is you keep on taking stock on a regular basis. Weekly basis, you look at certain aspects of your warehouse and take stock. So keep on doing it on a continuous basis. So you don't have to close shop for 1 or 2 whole days and then call it inventory count in days, and then you can't do that. It's actually trials have found that when you close shop and then for 2 days you start counting inventory, you'll never have 100% accurate inventory, because you will always have discrepancies. Because it's the people who are basically counting. So this is why they have actually moved away from that and moved into concept called cycle counting. You keep on counting on a regular basis. Okay. Right. So to manage inventory, right, you need to plan. So when you plan, right, you've got 3 strategies that you can use. One is called the chase strategy. One is called the flexibility strategy. The other is called the level strategy. Right. So I'll quickly go through. Chase strategy is very, very easy. Right. You are not bothered about inventory. You are only bothered about demand and capacity. Right. So you will only manufacture what is basically demanded. So what happens in a chase strategy? Production rate is synchronized with the demand rate by varying machine capacity or hiring and laying off employees in the demand rate. So here what happens is you don't actually hold inventory at all. You are not bothered about inventory. Very low inventory. You are just manufacturing what the customer wants. That's all. So these are good for highly predictable items. So a chase strategy can be used for specific items which have a high demand predictability. Okay. So this will actually give you very low levels of inventory, right? Now you can actually use this for very unpredictable items, or you can use this for highly predictable items as well, provided your inventory carrying costs are very high. If your warehouse space is very high, then you can actually take a look at this. We'll sort of learn a bit more on this one later, right, with some examples. The second one is the flexibility strategy, right? Well, again, inventory is low. You just sort of change the capacity, change the people, right? You send people home, or you keep the people, but then you change the machine hours of the people, and it's flexibility. It's all about the flexibility of the process, right? So you keep what you call capacity high. So you use the same machines, but you work on the labor force, right? You take the labor force and send them on leave when there's low demand, and then bring them and then put them on overtime to keep that sort of to bridge that gap between capacity and demand. Level strategies, is always inventory. Whatever maximum capacity that you have, you make use and put it into inventory, right? You keep on, manufacturing to inventory whether there is a demand for that product or not, right? So this is actually used for highly predictable items where there is, predictability of demand, or else where your inventory carrying costs are very low. So these are some of the things that we will actually, study a little bit in depth, later on. And that's about all. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? No questions?